Hello and welcome, and help me welcome Ross Connolly. Oh,
Some audio is
not good?
not correct.
Uh-oh. Now I got two cameras on me, huh? So we'll be just talking to one another, and he will adjust the cameras on whoever's speaking, so that's so you don't have to worry about the cameras.
Okay, in 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello, and help me welcome Ross Connolly from the Americans for Prosperity. Ross, welcome aboard, and tell us a little bit about the Americans for Prosperity and what you're doing as Deputy Director as a state.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I'm Ross Connolly. I'm with Americans for Prosperity, the Deputy State Director here in New Hampshire. If you don't know much about AFP, what we do is we seek to break the barriers in society that hold people back from trying to reach their full potential. So a lot of things that are in government or regulations or taxes that stand, or in the criminal justice system, that stand in people's way from being able to seek the opportunity in their life to make them fulfilled with their life and make them happy. So on a day-to-day basis, that's what I do. I work on legislation in Concord. I help build communities here in the state through our 2 offices in Manchester and Portsmouth.
And do you have a lot of volunteers working with you, or how does that work?
Absolutely. I always say the power behind Americans for Prosperity is our activist base, our community of people that want to see positive change in New Hampshire and across the country. We have 36 state chapters that are mapped out in the same way, that it's the people at the local level that are really making the difference. So in the state of New Hampshire, on a given week, we have events nearly every single night at our offices or in other locations with a community of people that are working on specific things, whether it's at the local level or up in Concord or nationally. Some legislation that's going on in Washington.
So they should contact you with the information we have on our screen if they want to see what they could do to get involved with your organization?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
You can contact me at my email, or my phone number is also listed on the website if you want to get involved and start making these incremental changes to make life better for all Granite Staters.
Well, you must be kind of busy if you're involved with Concord these days.
Just a bit. Just a bit.
Well, what is the most interesting things you've been doing the last couple of weeks?
So some big pieces of legislation. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Concord in terms of some barriers that are being proposed to be erected. So some things that are starting to be discussed that we view would make life more difficult for people in New Hampshire. Just a brief snapshot of that, we have bills to ban plastic straws and bags, which seems trivial but could have a big impact on business owners in the state. And then also some larger ones. So one huge problem in an area that I work in a lot is occupational licensure. There's 15% of the state's employees, people that work in the state,
are involved in that?
Yes,
that's quite a large number.
Yes, it's significantly larger. For perspective, union employees, it's about 4%. People that earn the minimum wage is about 1 to 2% in a given year. So this is a massive sector of the populace, and we try and reduce that specific barrier, because it's very difficult if you're on the lower end of the totem pole to be able to go through some of the regulations to get one of the license. So we actively try and reduce that. But next week there's a bill coming up that will set up a commission to review whether we need more regulations and more licenses. In this particular area, it's for life coaches, something that we believe certainly doesn't help at all. That a certification or some other way could take care of that.
That's interesting because I guess this is just another one with the change in the majority of killing all the things that were done in the last couple of years. I remember back in 2011 when I was one of the subcommittee chairs on looking at how to reduce the number of regulations, and we did a fairly decent job. I mean, we knew we hadn't done enough because there's just too many things in there that weren't really necessary. And the system to monitor the way people did things, whether they obeyed the so-called laws or something, the licensing, were very stringent. And they didn't even warn people that they, unknowingly had violated some of those regulations. It was terrible just the way they were treated and fined. And they picked on the little people who were small companies or even single self-employed, who really couldn't afford to fight them.
Oh, absolutely. We made some headway last session. The governor certainly took steps to reduce. He had a commission that reviewed a lot of the regulations and got rid of a lot of the ones that really did absolutely nothing for anyone but caused trouble. So he got rid of a lot of those. We also, I worked on a bill that would have reviewed all the licenses in the state and made recommendations based on what the commission came up with of how we could reduce some of those regulations in employment and occupations. Unfortunately, that bill didn't pass, but a piece of it did, so that at least if you're coming out of the criminal justice system, you can now appeal to a board, and before you go and get the training and spend the money to acquire a license, and you can ask the licensure board whether or not you would be able to
whether you were qualified to get that exception. Tell me, I had, in the past, I had a constituent who actually did a lot of that work, helping people get their licenses and stuff. And they told me that some of the people that are in charge of issuing the licenses still do it paper by paper. No computer contacts or no applications by a computer. Is that still in existence?
I'm not sure. It depends on the board, the licensure board, because they're set up where there are specific boards per occupation.
Yeah.
Like there's a medical board, things of that sort. A lot of them are very rigorous to get through. I don't know if it's still paper in every single one of them, but just a lot of the rules that they set up, they often will cite, well, the application or the license fee isn't that much, but it could cost, over $15,000 to get the school,
wow. Yeah.
the training to go to the school, in the case of cosmetologists, for instance.
Well, I know that was one of the areas that was always in question because they wanted to do everything, including people who braided hair. That seemed that somebody wasn't going to spend $15,000 to get a license to do that.
Yes, and a couple years ago we finally got rid of there was a specific license to braid hair, and we finally got rid of that license. It no longer exists in the state of New Hampshire, so you don't have to go to cosmetology school now to braid hair, which has made a significant impact on people. It sounds, like a silly thing, a license to braid hair, but I know of a woman in Manchester that was a barrier for her. She's a refugee from Africa, and she couldn't find work in the city and in the state because that's what she wanted to do. That was her skills. And now she's successfully opened up a pretty large business in Manchester where she has clientele coming, and she's really found a niche in the economy in Manchester to really provide and contribute to the society.
Well, that's nice to hear. It's sorry, such fate though when they have to go through things like this, and the fact that some people are still just writing paper and passing paper back and forth instead of doing it on a computer nowadays sounds, you know, stupid. I guess is the best word I can think for it. But you know, in a way, we have a little bit of a swamp in our regulations then, huh?
Absolutely, yes.
What other areas do you think that we ought to fix up there in Concord? Because, I mean, what's happening from what I hear is really, I don't know, I call it strange, but that maybe is just being a little bit nice.
Certainly, we're working on a few things that are large priorities for us. Specifically, ensuring that some of the progress we've made over the past few years in New Hampshire does not get rolled back. We shouldn't be stopping a good thing from happening. New Hampshire has the lowest unemployment in the country now. We actually have negative unemployment if you look at the people that are not working compared to the unemployment rate. And we shouldn't be putting in place regulations and laws that are going to undo that progress. So, for instance, we want to make sure that we are going to continue the allocation in the next couple of years of tax cuts for businesses, tax relief for employers, because that has been a driving force. If you look when we have lower business taxes, every time you can see an economic bump when that happens.
And the surpluses that go along with it that are unintended.
Exactly. Yeah. The state now has record revenue from business taxes, even though we lowered them, which was, I'm sure, as you remember, when we passed them, a lot of the fear-mongering was that we'd have huge budget deficits, but it did just the opposite because of the economic growth.
Well, now the person who's in charge of the committee for Ways and Means wants to put the tax rate up again. How are we going to do with that?
Yeah, we are certainly opposed to any effort to undo that and to raise it. And the way I view it is, if you're looking to increase taxes when we have record revenues for the state, what are you trying to accomplish? In my view, you're only trying to accomplish to punish business owners for trying to contribute to their communities and hire more people and bolster the economy. Why would you want to put a higher tax on them to punish them? Again, when we have those record revenues.
Right. And we're doing a lot of things with that extra money that we weren't able to do before. I know Nashua got extra money for roads and stuff like that, and I'm sure a lot of other communities benefited also. But people, I guess, have to notify their representatives that this should continue.
Yes, I would make sure your representatives oppose any and all effort to undo that progress, the business taxes, some of the steps like having a work requirement for Medicaid, things that are common sense steps that have helped our state be the magnet that it is in New England. We have the fastest growing economy in New England. We have the largest net migration in New England. We want to keep being that North Star compared to our neighbors and
make people successful, even the ones that haven't been in regular work for a long time, should have the opportunity to get out there, do something useful that really makes them feel better for themselves too.
Yes.
It's not only the community, but a person really likes to be able to earn something on his own.
Yeah. Being able to find your path in life, that's why we exist. We think being able to remove those barriers in people's way so that they can seek a better life for themselves and their family, that's what provides a certain amount of happiness for people.
Do you support the training programs and the extra ways that they're getting community colleges to help out people get retrained in some other area that they're not an expert in?
I think we haven't really had a position on that, But I think having private investment to encourage people to have more training, especially in this economy, when employers are just dying to have people to fill slots. I talk to business owners around the state, and they are desperate for people to fill slots. That's how good the economy is. And the key to that is employers are willing to pay more. Having an entry-level job at $15 an hour, and then being able to work with them to provide training, on-the-spot training, is something that we certainly would encourage, and I think would drastically help an issue where if we're falling short in having trained workers, having that investment from communities instead of having it throwing government money at another problem.
Well, I've heard that the community colleges are really tying in more with different companies, especially as technology advances. You got to keep people, to understand how to go along with it.
Absolutely. I think it's no secret that the economy is changing. You can look around everywhere. And I think we need to make ourselves as ready as possible for changes in the economy. And the way you do that is having safeguards in economic development so that we are, if there's a recession or anything of that sort, or a new, creative, destructive technology comes in and changes up an industry, to be prepared for that. Part of that is having training, but like I said, I think the best route to that is private companies training employees that they'll need for those positions.
Well, there's a number of things that are going on up there in Concord. The organization of the administration, you notice any changes in how that's going along? Is the governor trying to do something better with the administration?
In terms of the administration within,
well, how it responds to the needs better of the voters,
Yeah, I think the governor has made his positions really clear, that he wants to make sure the New Hampshire advantage is protected.
Right.
And that he's going to make sure that his agenda is reflecting that. So I think he's working hard. There's a rally on Saturday that he's having up in Concord, letting the voters know and the taxpayers know that he's standing up for these principles that we discussed, the lower business taxes.
Is that 10 o'clock on Saturday?
Yes, 10 a.m.
Okay.
Saturday. Yes.
Okay, and that's at the Capitol, the state Capitol.
State House lawn.
Okay, because I know people do want to find out how he feels and how he's. I guess got some choices on whether to veto some of these legislation that is contrary to what he's stated that he wants for the state.
Absolutely.
Do you think that vetoes will hold, or do you, if he does have to go after the things like increasing the tax on business?
I think there's going to be some tough decisions in some of the bills coming out of the State House, because there's a lot coming out. There's over 1,000 bills this session, but I think the governor has really committed himself to being the last line of defense for the New Hampshire advantage, and I'm encouraged by what he's been saying about that, protecting the business tax cuts, and protecting the New Hampshire advantage. And that will probably mean a significant amount of vetoes. But I, for one, as a native Granite Stater, would be very appreciative that he's standing up to some of the regulations that will make life much harder for people in New Hampshire.
I think another question will be in that medical area too, and the cost of medical care, and what we do with Medicaid and things like that, because she does have a solution that's, I guess, different than what the current majority thinks is needed.
Yes, there's a paid family medical leave bill called SB1 that has now passed both chambers of the legislature and is on its way to the governor's desk. Both Americans for Prosperity and the governor are completely opposed to this this piece of legislation. It would invariably add an income tax to the state. The way that the system works is it would be taxing income in order to pay for a new entitlement program. That is a system that is unsustainable. It wouldn't be able to pay for itself, and is just the wrong direction to go, where you're taking something like short-term disability, which we have in the state, that companies offer. That would essentially go away with this new program, and people who relied on that insurance would then lose it and have to pay a new income tax to be able to have this alternative that they never wanted in the first place.
Well, it's not that they have a choice either. It's going to be regulated again, which is the same thing with Obamacare. They wanted to throw one thing at everybody when people have different needs and different desires, and they don't need it. I mean, there is paid family leave insurance that's available now if companies wanted to participate in that. And I think the governor has a different plan than SB1.
Yes, the governor's plan works, it's 2 states, New Hampshire and Vermont, to provide a voluntary program to offer people who would like the family medical insurance, so that it makes has an insurance companies that can offer it within the state to people who want it. But as I said, it's completely voluntary. It's not a tax. There's no tax associated with it, and that is a much more beneficial plan than what SB1 is, which again could lead to an income tax and force people into something they don't want.
We had experience with Obamacare leading us in the wrong direction, and we still haven't been able to correct all the problems with it. I think that one other thing that I guess Medicare is looking at is increasing the ability to use home health care for things like that. You know, I've had personal experience where that works very well. Both my first wife and my mother passed away in my house, but we were able to take care of her with outside help that way, because the insurance plan that I had covered for that. And I think that's a better way, a much better, and more expensive to the government too, for running that kind of care. And families do help one another. You'll find that when some tragedy happens like that, there are a lot of people that will come and help, a family or neighbors or something like that, so that you have somebody helping you out, because that is a very, I don't know, it's a load to bear that makes, it's a difficult load to bear, I guess is what I want to say. But there are things that just, you don't try to impose on people a plan that they may not have any control over. And I think just seeing how people act when they have more freedom of choice, I mean, in every aspect of life, I think people are looking for that ability. You see more variety of things that you have to offer, that are offered to you in life, that you have a choice to pick, you know, which way is good for you or your family or whatever. And I think that's what's necessary. And that's what's missing a lot with people who want to control everything. And that's the way I look at it. They think they know better than I do. And, you know, they don't know me, so how do they know better than I do? And they can't standardize everybody to the same the same picture.
Yes.
But what are you looking forward to in the coming election? I mean, we have a local election coming up this fall, but next year is going to be another presidential election. So what's Americans for Prosperity preparing for?
I mean, in terms of the presidential election, me being a native Granite Stater, born in Nashua, grew up in Hollis, I love the
First in the nation thing?
First in the nation primary. You really can't get any better.
Right.
It's like our state sport. So I really enjoyed that. Just on a personal level, being able to see that on the front lines. But for AFP, we're going to keep doing what we do, which is promoting the issues and that will help change people's lives and will help make New Hampshire a better place to live, work, raise a family, and coming up, I'm sure we'll, at the end of legislative sessions, we do scorecards, so we'll put out where, your representatives, may have missed a couple or may have done well in terms of our spectrum of issues. And then we do accountability efforts, bringing those issues to the forefront of the constituents that the representatives represent. So that's one of our really big roles, is to make sure that the constituents are educated on the issues that have happened in Concord. Whether that's a positive, he did a great job, or maybe they missed a couple at the end there.
So it's going to be a lot of spending money on TV, I suppose. Do you run any TV ads or anything on issues?
We have in the past. I'm sure many people in the state have seen our ads about Obamacare a few years ago, but we have no plans as of now to run television ads, but you never know. It all depends on what the issue is, and how big of a voice we need to pump out to Granite Staters.
Well, we look forward to hearing from you and seeing what American for Prosperity can do for all the people in New Hampshire.
Absolutely, and it was great being back in Nashua. I'm a graduate of Bishop Girton. So it's always good to be back.
Good. Well, say hello to your neighbors, and and maybe they'll contact you. Maybe they'll help you.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for listening in, and please come to the next Republican meeting, which is the second Thursday of every month. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a wrap.
Okay.
It was fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Quick.